Okay, so once you have the motor mount on, now we can mount the pinion gear. Again, this is the one that has the two small holes. If you only have one hole here, it means you got the wrong one in this spot, so you'll want to switch those back. So we'll test this again, make sure that, I think we already covered this, but make sure that it goes on, fits nice. We're going to use these two small cap screws. They're the only two screws that are this small that should be left over. Right, and we're going to put those in. Let's test, make sure they thread in nice. If there's any burrs in there, gently clear them out. Again, being a custom screw, there might be a burr in there, but don't tear it up. Just go in gently. Make sure that these screw in nice. And there's not a lot of depth to this, so you don't want to torque it down too much, or you can damage the gears. But you still should be able to get a nice snug fit up against the motor shaft. And that's why I gave you cap screws instead of set screws, is because I just don't think you could get enough force on it with a set screw. I hate set screws. I think I say that over and over again. Okay, so I'm going to use some Loctite on this. I went out and actually got my Loctite because these screws, oops, it'll drop right there, are small and I don't want them to work themselves out. So I'll put a drop of Loctite on there, get it started, back it out a little bit. Same thing with this one. And I'm using the blue Loctite. You can use whatever you prefer. Get those just started. Okay. Line up one of the screws with the flat shaft. Okay, and then we're going to put that on so that the end of the shaft and the top surface of the gear are pretty much flush. And that'll give us a good mesh between the two gears. And I would have liked to see these gears have a little more width to them, but I was fighting to try to keep the profile of this system as low as possible so that it doesn't have to hang out the bottom of the assembly any more than it already does. Okay, so once I get that where I want, again, kind of snug it into place, make sure your screw's nice and secure up against the flat side first, and then we'll loosen that and just make sure that one fits nice. Then snug up the other side, and then just tighten that up. Again, don't go crazy. With the Loctite in there, you get it nice and snug, and it shouldn't work itself out again. And I'm just going to wipe off excess. Okay, and then when you mesh these, you can put some grease in here if you like to. I use just some white lithium grease, and so we're going to mount this in here. So the way we're going to mount it is I'm going to turn it so, well, first of all, there's a round hole here and then two slots on the plate. So the round hole will go to this one hole that's all by itself, and then you got these two that are symmetrical. So we'll put the round hole here like this, and the limit switch wires will come through this hole like that. And if you've got everything in place correctly, then the wires will actually be pointing towards the limit switch wires rather than away from it. Okay, we're going to secure it with these three cap screws right here. These are the 440 cap screws, and we're going to use those to mount the motor. As you're putting this together, you might need to just spin that motor a little bit just to align the teeth so that it drops into place, but then just gently get your screws in here, not tight, but just ready to snug up against the mounting plate. And because of the slotted holes here, you can rotate your motor, right, and mesh those teeth. And so you're going to want to put a little bit of force on there and then rotate the motor a little bit just to make sure that the teeth are engaged. You got a nice fit. Keep a little bit of pressure on there and then tighten it up. I'm going to let you decide how tight you want it. If you go crazy tight, that'll reduce a little more backlash. It'll also burn things up faster and be noisier. Or you can have just a small gap, whatever you prefer to do. It's really personal preference. Okay, but I just actually push it in there and just gently push on it with my finger to take out any slop. Okay, get those nice and tight. And then you can come in here and you can just put some grease on a toothpick or whatever, and you can, paint it onto your gears, and then just rotate it around, a couple times just to make sure it's in there and you're happy with it. And that ought to be a nice fit. And if everything is in there nice, this should rotate clean. Just looking at this, if you didn't get the gear on the shaft correctly, it might be pushing too hard against this bushing, and if you go too far the other way, then you won't have a lot of mesh in there. So take a look in there and make sure you got a mesh that you're comfortable with, and you should be good to go. Okay, so at this point we are going to dress these wires to kind of make sure they don't cause any troubles, and I'm going to do that on another video.